Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some very spicy battles in the Open Master League featuring a double Ultra Beast team. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now the team features the Ultra Beast NIHILEGO on the lead and BUZZWOLE in the back, and to round out the team, this trainer is pairing it up with Zamazenta. So a very spicy team, definitely more for fun than for climbing, but still manages to get some wins. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the double Ultra Beasts in action in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up the Dream Lead NIHILEGO into Zacian, and the Zacian is not switching out. So this must mean they are core broken, and somewhere in the back, there's a second Pokemon weak to NIHILEGO. They fire off the close combat, opponent save switches into Dialga, and there's a perfect counter available in BUZZWOLE. These counters absolutely shredding through the Dialga. Dialga fires off the Iron Head, and we're going to see a shield from the BUZZWOLE. BUZZWOLE farming up so much energy here, looking for the counter down, and gets it, denying Dialga a second Iron Head. BUZZWOLE leaves with a lot of energy, and the Zacian is taking a lot of damage, so honestly, two charge moves here may KO. Lunge is able to connect, going for lunge number 2. Decision time for the opponent. Do they want to save the energy? Yes, they do. They're forced to throw. BUZZWOLE has done its job, and now, honestly, you could probably just send in the Zamazenta to get an energy lead in the back. Opponent has Yveltal, so it makes sense why they stayed in, as the Yveltal and the Zacian both get absolutely destroyed by NIHILEGO. Opponent goes for the Dark Pulse here. Dark Pulse just not going to cut it in this matchup. Even a Focus Blast would not be lethal. Going for close combat number 1. That's going to get the shield. Now going for close combat number 2 into Yveltal, and the combo play with the NIHILEGO. Rock Slide from the NIHILEGO. Goodbye, Yveltal. In comes the Zacian, and the opponent concedes the match. Great lead again in the next match, NIHILEGO into Togekiss. Opponent save switches into Melmetal, and Melmetal will immediately be answered by BUZZWOLE. These Steel-type save switches having a terrible day as BUZZWOLE enters the field. BUZZWOLE farming up, Melmetal making it to another charge move here, but BUZZWOLE not too worried about a second Rock Slide. BUZZWOLE able to tank that, no problem, farming up to the back-to-back superpowers, putting pressure onto the Melmetal. Superpower is going to connect. Opponent can send back in the Togekiss to farm down, but Togekiss can't really do much of anything against the NIHILEGO. Back in comes the Togekiss. BUZZWOLE able to make it to one final charge move, goes for the lunge. That does not deal a lot of damage as Togekiss gets the farm down. In comes NIHILEGO. It is a Mewtwo in the back, and Mewtwo is a bit uncomfortable as Zamazenta is a fighting type compared to Zacian being a fairy. So Zamazenta will take super effective damage from a Psy Strike. We are going to see a shield from the Zamazenta on the Psy Strike. Opponent continuing to overfarm, and Zamazenta able to make a second move. Crunch is going to get the shield. We see the defense drop as well. Mewtwo has farmed up so much energy. At this point, you just have to let the Zamazenta go. Psy Strike is going to KO. In comes NIHILEGO. NIHILEGO not going to appreciate the Psy Strike here. So NIHILEGO forced to burn the final shield. NIHILEGO makes it to the Rock Slide. Rock Slide, is it going to be enough to KO the Mewtwo? Rock Slide gets the KO. Back in comes the Togekiss, and there's just nothing Togekiss can do. NIHILEGO makes the Sludge Bomb. This is going to be goodbye, Togekiss, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a terrible lead, NIHILEGO into Dialga. We see a save switch into Zamazenta. Opponent sends in a Giratina Origin, but this is not a counter to Zamazenta whatsoever. Zamazenta with Snarl and Crunch will be able to get to these charge moves incredibly quickly and put a lot of pressure onto the Giratina Origin. Going for Crunch number 1, that's going to connect. We do not see the defense drop, but Zamazenta farming up and already almost at 2 more moves. Going for Crunch number 2, that's going to get the shield. Opponent throws on alignment, giving Zamazenta a Snarl for free, and giving free energy to a Snarl user usually means you're about to lose switch. Zamazenta now at the back-to-back crunches here, going for the first. That gets the shield. Giratina cannot make the Shadow Ball. Zamazenta able to fire off the crunch, get the KO, and win switch. And this means Dialga is going to be stuck against the BUZZWOLE in the endgame. Opponent sends in their final Pokemon, and it's Zacian. Had the opponent been able to keep switch, this would have been a hard counter loss, but Zamazenta taking switch away from the Giratina, and now it's the opponent who's about to get hard countered. Close combat number 2 is going to connect. Zacian still not able to farm down. They're forced to expend energy here. Zacian goes for the wild charge. In comes NIHILEGO. They'll fire off a charge move, but at this point you just cue a switch into BUZZWOLE because the opponent will send in Dialga. We see the simultaneous switch, great anticipation, and now BUZZWOLE gets to absolutely shred Dialga with a superpower. Superpower KOs the Dialga. In comes the Zacian. Zacian firing off a final charge move here, but we've seen their moveset. They do not have play rough. BUZZWOLE hangs on and gets the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a great lead, NIHILEGO into Lugia, and the Lugia is staying in, which is fantastic news for NIHILEGO. NIHILEGO farming up, opponent save switches into Metagross, and Metagross will be answered with Zamazenta. Unfortunately, quite a bit of lag as Zamazenta gets brought into the field, and Metagross makes it to the Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash will be shielded. Zamazenta going for the Crunch. Crunch not going to KO, but will deal some solid damage onto the Metagross. Metagross is going to no-shield Zamazenta, farming up. Opponent makes another Meteor Mash. Zamazenta having to double shield in this matchup, and the unfortunate thing is I don't think Zamazenta can snarl down. Zamazenta farms up to 2 more Crunches, and it's going to fire off a move. Crunch will be no-shielded. Opponent sends back in Lugia, and Lugia going to be hit with super effective Crunches. Crunch is going to connect. Lugia over-farming, and they over-farm a bit too much. Zamazenta winning CMP over the Lugia. Crunch connects, and now Lugia is in farm down range for NIHILEGO. NIHILEGO can very comfortably poison jab down here. In comes NIHILEGO. In the back, opponent has Snorlax. Snorlax is about to have an absolutely terrible day against BUZZWOLE. In comes BUZZWOLE, and there's just not really much that Snorlax can do here, unfortunately, for the opponent. They can go for the body slam, but as you can see, Master League BUZZWOLE is very tanky, able to absorb that damage, doesn't even have to fully charge the lunge. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. A tough lead returns in the next match, NIHILEGO into Dialga. Again, we see the save switch into Zamazenta. This opponent is going to respond with a Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh will be hit with a Crunch from Zamazenta. Crunch does not get same type attack bonus, so that just does not do a lot of damage to the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh does have a ton of energy here. They're firing off the Sacred Fire. Sacred Fire, not quite enough to KO. Zamazenta only going to make it to 1 more charge move, so opting for the close combat. Close combat connects. Ho-Oh does leave with some energy here, but the nice thing is that NIHILEGO is going to be a wall, as NIHILEGO is resisting both the Brave Bird and the Sacred Fire, so NIHILEGO can very comfortably no-shield here. Ho-Oh fires off the Sacred Fire. NIHILEGO does not get debuffed. Opponent gives up switch. They send in Dialga, and Dialga definitely not going to have a good day against BUZZWOLE. BUZZWOLE, if possible, has to try and leave with some energy, so that way it can throw some charge moves at the Ho-Oh. BUZZWOLE forced to go for the lunge here, not going to be able to get the counter down. Lunge should be lethal onto the Dialga. Dialga lets it go, but now they can send back in Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh will be hit with the lunge. Is the opponent willing to expend shields here? Yes, they are. The incinerate damage tearing through BUZZWOLE. BUZZWOLE makes it to the superpower, but unfortunately it's on alignment. Opponent is able to commit the shield. BUZZWOLE gets KO'd. In comes NIHILEGO. NIHILEGO firing off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will KO the Ho-Oh in the back. It's a smackdown Tyranitar. You have got to be kidding me. And Tyranitar, unfortunately, will be able to win this game, as NIHILEGO is going to fall barely short of the second Rock Slide. Tough lead in the next match, NIHILEGO into Mamoswine. NIHILEGO, these poison jabs are going to do absolutely nothing, so we see a save switch into Zamazenta. Zamazenta going to be met with Zacian. Zacian will be hit with a Crunch. Unfortunately, everything is resisted here from Zamazenta. Crunch connects, does get the defense drop, and now going for Crunch number 2. Zacian can still comfortably tank the charge move, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to let that damage through, and if it's the Play Rough, this is going to hurt. Play Rough is going to connect. Zamazenta able to hang on, make it to the close combat, and the question is close combat going to be enough now that the defense has been debuffed? It is not. Zacian able to hang on, make it to the last second charge move. We see the shield from the Zamazenta, and Zamazenta forces switch. switch. In comes Mamoswine, but Mamoswine now going to have to deal with BUZZWOLE. These counters starting to add up. Mamoswine is going to be firing off a high horsepower into the BUZZWOLE. They definitely needed to go for the avalanche, as due to the bug typing, high horsepower is resisted. Lunge is going to be shielded. In comes NIHILEGO. NIHILEGO is going to be taking neutral damage from a Focus Blast and neutral damage from the Dark Pulse. Opponent goes for the Focus Blast, but this is also a poison type, so Focus Blast not going to hit for super effective damage. Rock Slide is going to KO Yveltal. Back in comes Mamoswine. Mamoswine going to be hit with a Rock Slide. Rock Slide hitting for neutral damage onto the Mamo. Rock Slide is going to be shielded. Mamoswine looking to massively overfarm. They're finally going to throw some energy here. We see a shield from NIHILEGO, just wanting the Mamoswine to waste their energy, and NIHILEGO makes it to another Rock Slide. This should be taking care of the Mamoswine, and that is a good game. We see the terrible lead return once again, NIHILEGO into Dialga. As always, immediate save switch into Zamazenta. Opponent responds with a Giratina, and we've seen how this goes. Zamazenta can absolutely flip switch here. Zamazenta going for the crunch into the Giratina. That's going to connect. Giratina returning fire with a charge move. We see the shield from the Zamazenta as Giratina full sent the Shadow Ball. Zamazenta farming up, going for the crunch here. This crunch will be lethal. Opponent, they will commit the shield. They want to try and keep switch advantage if they can. Going for the crunch, and I believe that was a CMP tie here. This crunch onto the Giratina will get the final shield. We finally see the defense debuff. Zamazenta shielding as well, wanting to try and take switch advantage. Zamazenta will be able to do just that, making it to the crunch. This will be taking out the Giratina, and Zamazenta has flipped switch. This is massive. Opponent sends in Dialga. Oh no. Can they make the close combat? Yes, but the close combat is caught onto Zacian. Nice catch by the opponent, but bad news for them. They do not have switch, so this is going to be very awkward. The Dialga does have energy though, and Dialga energy can potentially be a little awkward. We're going to see NIHILEGO get the full farm down, but now NIHILEGO not really going to be able to do much of anything against the Dialga. Dialga able to tank the Rock Slide here, and this could get uncomfortable, as Dialga with this big of an energy lead is incredibly deadly. Rock Slide is going to connect. NIHILEGO farming up, trying to make it to one more. Rock Slide dies with the move. This will all come down to a potential catch here. This is going to be interesting. Sends in the BUZZWOLE, goes for the catch onto Zamazenta, but the opponent showing incredible patience, and now they get to Draco. This does not one-shot. BUZZWOLE able to hang on. BUZZWOLE gets Dragon Breath down on 1 HP. Hopping to the final match, and the tough leads continue. NIHILEGO into Therian Landorus. Immediate save switch into Zamazenta. Zamazenta will be answered with Zacian. Things just going from bad to worse in this final game. Zamazenta going for the crunch. Crunch is going to connect onto the Zacian. Unfortunately, we do not see a defense debuff. A little bit of lag there. Zamazenta is going to no shield. Zacian is running Play Rough, and Play Rough rocks the Zamazenta. Zamazenta does have the back-to-back close combats loaded. Going for close combat number 1 into the Zacian, and now going for close combat number 2. This will not KO, but it will deal some sizable damage onto the Zacian. We see aggressive pivot into the NIHILEGO, getting rid of the Zacian and preserving the Zamazenta for a potential catch later in the match. Back in comes Landorus. Landorus firing off a charge move, and we do see a no shield from the NIHILEGO. They go for the Stone Edge. NIHILEGO able to hang on, farming up, and going for the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will hit for neutral damage here, and honestly, damage is needed on the Landorus, as whatever happens, Landorus is probably going to have to be countered down by BUZZWOLE in the endgame. Stone Edge is going to connect, waiting the clock, as the switch timer, unfortunately, not quite up yet, and now in comes BUZZWOLE, and it's Yveltal in the back. Wait. This is actually winnable. Yveltal did build up to a potential Hurricane. We see a shield from the BUZZWOLE. It's just a Dark Pulse. So unfortunately, we still don't know for sure if they have Hurricane or not. BUZZWOLE firing off the lunge. We see a shield from Yveltal. BUZZWOLE continuing to farm up. I believe this can only be a Dark Pulse. So we do see the no shield here. The good news is opponent has now confirmed they are not running Hurricane, which means BUZZWOLE is going to wall their energy. BUZZWOLE going for the lunge. That will be shielded. BUZZWOLE continuing to farm up, and we see the catch. Switched out earlier, saved it for a catch. and gets the catch onto the Zamazenta. In comes Landorus. Landorus will be hit with the lunge. Lunge is resisted here, but it is going to be enough to KO. Back in comes Yveltal. BUZZWOLE makes it to yet another lunge, only having to hit a couple bubbles. That's still going to take down Yveltal and secure the win. All in all, these were some incredibly fun battles. It's really cool to see two Ultra Beasts teaming up and absolutely flexing on some top meta teams. So very nicely done there. And the addition of Zamazenta was very cool. Zamazenta is a Pokemon that if it does come back into raids, I would love to try and do some in-person raids, see if it's possible to get the XLs, because Zamazenta, man, that thing does look quite deadly in the right situation. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you is always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.